I'm live. I'm starting a new book. It is called So Moses Was Born. It's another far memory book by Joan Grant. It's her seventh far memory book, and it is the story of Moses. It's a familiar one found in the bulrushes. Moses' upbringing in the court of Egypt gave him the influence and power to set the Israelites free. Joan Grant enlarges the picture by depicting the events that lead up to the discovery of the baby Moses, convincingly portraying the man she believed was his father, Moses II, through the words of his reclusive half-brother Nebunefer. Nebunefer is, it says here, so Moses was born by the hand of Nebunefer in the 24th year of Ramoses II. So, we're starting with the first chapter, entitled Testament to Moses. When I woke this morning, so vivid had been my dream that I was surprised to find myself not only alive, but in my usual excellent health. A dream which occurs 3 nights in succession and is identical in every detail cannot be ignored. I find it annoying that the dream provides me with so little exact information and yet indicates that I, Nebunefer, am unlikely to be able to fulfill my promise to play a lively part in the education of my nephew, Moses. Pharaoh already has more than 60 sons, so why do I, with such a plethora of nephews, select Moses as the target of my reminiscence? I believe that he is born to a destiny which will vitally affect the future of Egypt. Ramoses, although Moses is only a year old, is already determined that the boy shall surpass him in magnificence. He is convinced, as I am, that Moses is not only the chosen son of the Pharaoh, but a true son of Horus. It had been my intention to persuade Ramoses to allow the boy to frequently to visit me, and I had hoped that in the seclusion of my estate, the living water, he would acquire a faith in the basic simplicities of human relationships, a lack of which can turn a beneficent power into an agent of destruction. I know only too well, having in my time been the royal heir, how difficult it is for a boy to value truth when he is offered adulation and flattery instead of honest criticism. Will anyone, even his father, tell him the real circumstances of his birth? Will anyone have the courage to warn him of the unique conflict which he will feel within himself, the conflict which stems from the opposing forces of his physical heredity? I doubt it. I doubt it so much that I impose upon myself the task of covering a large quantity of papyrus with writing signs. I am unskilled in the use of words which have no voice to warm them, so I pray that Moses will read with the insight that I will strive to bring into this record of events which must so intimately concern us. To return for a moment to my dream, I see a chariot to which are harnessed 2 stallions. The chariot is richly decorated, even the bosses of the wheels being ornamented with gold. The trappings are of red leather studded with turquoise, but it is the colour of the horses which is remarkable. They are both black and white, the variation occurring in irregular patches. They appear docile and stand quietly mouthing their silver bits in the shade of some date palms. I now see a man standing in the chariot, which moves slowly along a track that I recognize for the one leading eastwards across the desert. the man increases the pace to a gallop and leans back, with his hair streaming in the wind. Far from being alarmed at the speed, which is surely excessive considering the increasing roughness of the ground, he appears exultant. A hare pursued by a jackal dashes almost under the horse's hoofs. They swerve, and the man is flung from the chariot like a stone from a sling. From the way he is lying, it is certain that his neck is broken. It is only at this stage of the dream that I realize the dead man is myself. The only additional information I could gather from the repetitions of the dream is that the dates on the palm trees which occur in the first scene are ready for picking. This is sound evidence that I shall have several months to complete this record. If the chariot should arrive before my task is finished, then the horses will have to be exercised by my charioteer until I have made arrangements for my final journey. Why do I not take this dream as a warning of an accident which could be easily avoided? Naturally, I could refuse the gift or the loan if such it proves to be of such conspicuous vehicle. I could take the further precaution of refusing to travel, except on foot or in a carrying litter, tedious as that would soon become. Am I then the victim of the illusion that predestination encases us in the future, as though we were helpless as flies mummified in amber? Do I accept as inescapable the fact that I shall die before I am 44, and therefore prefer the swift death to come to some slower but equally certain one that would pursue me even though I dared not leave my bed? To answer these questions, I ask another. Would any reasonable man be ungrateful if a friend sent a message informing him that it had been decided to send him abroad within a few months? Surely he would be glad of the foreknowledge, which gave ample opportunity to leave his affairs in good order, that he could enjoy the visit of new horizons without a backward glance. How can I rely on information which comes from an anonymous source? Were I a more competent wearer of the golden sandals, a priest of such authority that he has no need of symbols, then I would be in a position to say, "My wife, Sensen has sent me a message to tell me that at the time of the date harvest, I shall have the felicity of joining her on the other side of the river." Why do I consider Sensen to be the source of my dream? Because during the last 20 years she has constantly advised me, using dreams to convey news to my waking mind, which is not sufficiently burnished to reflect her intentions more clearly. I frankly admit that when she died, I became so absorbed in grief that everyone on my estate became affected by my apathy. To kill myself was impractical, for that would have been more likely to turn me into an uneasy ghost than to reunite me with Sensen. I fell into the common hearsay of believing that my soul would be more perceptive if my body were subdued. I fasted. I indulged in prodigies of physical endurance. When this failed to produce anything except fantasies which did not convince even myself during my rational moments, I went to the other extreme, bemusing my senses with concoctions of poppy juice, until I ignored even the rhythm of the sun's rising and setting. Only the implacable sanity of Mina, who was Sensen's foster mother and is still the benign ruler of my household, saved me from a permanent retreat into futility. She treated me as a child who, in spite of its efforts to be hatred, remains beloved. She was my only link with reality, for it's impossible to be pompous in the presence of a woman who insists on feeding you with broth and raw eggs, which when you are too weak with hunger to protest. However, until I had a true dream, even Mina could do no more than keep my body in a state from which, with due care, it would again become decently habitable. The dream had all the essential qualities of Sensen, a directness and simplicity, a refusal to be led into side roads, either flowery or beset with thorns. I found myself in a room where I conduct the stewardship of my estate. I heard her calling to me and hastened to the garden whose green shade I had created for her pleasure. It was deserted. Hold on a minute. This is too loud. It was deserted. But the door in the wall was open, and I saw Sensen sitting in the white dust of an unfamiliar road. Across her lap lay a child, whose eyes were bright with hunger, whose ribs under the dry skin were harsh as a withered palm leaf. "He is hungry," she said. "Neb, help me to carry him to the granary, so that I can show him that no one here need ever be hungry or afraid." I took the child in my arms, and Sensen walked beside me, confident that I would protect them both. The door of the granary swung idly on its hinges, creaking in a grey wind that scurried and sand into the water channels, which were sluggish with the refuse of neglect. The granary was empty. I woke to find Mina moistening my cracked lips with wine. "You wouldn't want her to see you like this," she said briskly. "Ill as you are, you can stop being a disgrace to her memory if you will remember that she wouldn't have loved you if you weren't worth loving." From that day onwards, I think I can claim, without falling into the pit of pride or the more subtle slough of humility, that I have not neglected the vineyards whose wine jars bear my cartouche. I am neither high priest of Ammon nor Pharaoh of the two lands. I believe that Moses has the might authority to fulfill both roles, and yet that the stele of the future will record his destiny as being greater than either. That was the first chapter of So Moses Was Born, and tomorrow or later, whenever, I shall read Royal Tomb. Happy Good Friday.